WWE bringing back the European Championship? Guys, we're going to talk about it right here, right now on Destination Pro Wrestling.
You have arrived at your destination.
Welcome back to the channel. It's your boy Ango, at Tango with Ango on Twitter. Guys, if you want to follow me, we're almost at 3,000 followers on Twitter. If you guys follow me, it would be greatly appreciated. It would totally make this quarantine so much more exciting for me because quite honestly, I've been bored. Honestly, I like legit just keep tweeting about wrestling, and it's probably a good thing because I'm staying busy and I'm constantly making videos, and that's another reason why you guys might want to follow me on there. Sometimes YouTube doesn't always push out the videos in the sub box. So this would be a good time to remind you, follow me on Twitter, all that good jazz. But let's just talk about WWE bringing back the European Championship because this has actually been a rumor for a long time. It's been rumored long before NXT UK was formed. Then NXT UK came out, and it was actually rumored last year that WWE was going to bring the European Championship back. And now the rumor is back. The rumor is back. The possibility of WWE bringing back the European Championship, it seems like it is very well possible within the next couple months. What's very, very interesting is the European Championship is actually one of my favorite title belts in WWE history. And I know a lot of people probably wouldn't expect me to say that, but something about that title design, it was just nice looking. It was prestigious. And some of my favorite memories with that belt were when William Regal held it. I know it sounds crazy again, but nonetheless, I really like the European Championship. And I think in comparison to what we've seen with the Universal Championship, the US Championship, Intercontinental Championship, I don't think it would be a bad idea for WWE to kind of switch things up. And that's kind of why I'm making this video, because obviously with the rumors of WWE potentially bringing back this championship belt, the one thing that really intrigues me is where WWE would introduce the belt. Last year, there was a rumor that suggested WWE would bring the European Championship back as a mid-card title belt. And if I remember correctly, I can't remember if I talked about it on Twitter, Instagram, Twitch, YouTube, but I remember at some point there was even a rumor that WWE was just going to rebrand the title into the Eurocontinental Championship. And that would have been the mid-card belt for NXT UK. And guys, by the way, I'm not entirely against that idea either, but I really want to see WWE do something special here because as you guys know, the 24/7 championship belt at some point will be retired. I think we all know at this point that the belt may not have a long-standing future within the company. Whether or not that's accurate, I don't know. I think that's more of an assumption than anything, but just based on the feedback from you guys on social media, it doesn't sound like WWE is gonna keep the ball rolling with this thing. Obviously, it's good for social media content, and it kind of allows them to give the belt to some famous people outside of WWE. But other than that, that belt really doesn't hold much value to WWE. So, despite it being a lower card championship belt, I don't think, based on what we're seeing right now with WWE, I don't think it's necessary to have a 24/7 championship belt. But I do think it is necessary to introduce another mid-card belt. And based on the rumors that the European Championship could be coming back, I actually don't want to see it as a mid-card belt on NXT UK. While it probably makes the most sense to put the belt on that program, I think if you're going to introduce a mid-card championship belt in the UK brand, I think you can do it. And quite honestly, I think you could do it without having the European Championship at all. I love the European Championship. Growing up, I thought it was really cool. Guys like Triple H, William Regal, they held that belt, and it was a nice mid-card title belt. And some people completely disagree with me, but that was just my preference growing up, especially in the early 2000s, late 90s. The European Championship belt, I think, was one of the better classy design title belts, which is very interesting considering what kind of title belts we actually had back at those times. But look at Raw and SmackDown, for example. And I think when you look at Raw and SmackDown, there are a lot of similarities of WWE now than what we saw back in the early 2000s. And I don't want to get into the specifics of that. I think it's a little bit more difficult off the top of the head to kind of explain why that is. But when you look at the presentation of Raw and SmackDown, despite it not being very much like the Attitude Era, WWE's in a situation where you have two brands. One is the A show, one is the B show, and currently the B show is the brand where you see a little bit more experiments. WWE experimenting on Raw, for example, with Cedric Alexander and Ricochet, two guys who are being buried. Now they're a tag team. They're going to be branded as a tag team. You could tell Paul Heyman is doing some work behind the scenes on Raw. And it got me thinking, with WWE having the 24/7 championship belt and, it's really not that successful of a title belt, I personally would bring the European Championship belt back to Raw. I would put it on the program that I think right now is a little bit more wrestling centric. I think it would be a good idea to keep that title away from the A brand, but allow this title to exist and allow this title to be actually prestigious. The United States Championship at this point hasn't really been seen on TV much lately. And quite honestly, the US Championship totally needs a makeover anyways. And there's been rumors that WWE would just not even, they might just drop the ball completely on the US Championship and replace it entirely. Now, whether or not that actually comes to fruition, I think WWE has a large enough roster. And I think because they have a large enough roster, they are actually able to introduce another mid-card belt. And if I'm WWE, I would allow this to be the scenario where you're starting to allow guys to actually compete for this belt just like it was back then. It's okay to have some lower tier guys, mid-card guys. You got a really nice main event roster and you have a very nice lower card roster, but you're not doing anything with them. And I think because of there's not enough opportunities going around for everybody. So offering a new championship belt kind of eliminates that problem and solves that problem by giving people something to work for. With WWE having the European Championship on WWE RAW, I still think it would be a very unique idea to have that title be defended on NXT UK. And I think it would totally be cool if WWE had a SmackDown show, and let's say they're in Europe for a tour, go ahead and feature that belt on tour, even if it's not with the specific brand that the title is obviously part of. So the reason why I mentioned that, I want to make a little bit of sense of that. The reason why I specifically mentioned that is because WWE has the tendency, and we saw this on Raw, they have the tendency to make roster changes to Raw and SmackDown and not necessarily having a good reason for it. So if the European Championship belt, for example, was defended on tour, at some point it was defended on tour in Europe, and it was defended on the SmackDown brand. Well, if a SmackDown superstar wins the belt, while yes, the European Championship belt would be, won by a SmackDown superstar, this would give WWE the opportunity to move the SmackDown superstar to Raw. And this way, WWE can make roster changes with it actually making sense. And by the way, I know my green screen is messing up, but we've been having some crazy weather in Michigan, guys. Just a little bit of a side note. So lighting conditions in the room, all that stuff. It's just kind of messing up right now. But nonetheless, the message is still the same. WWE bringing back the European Championship could be a really good idea. I think it could very well help WWE give the smaller guys, the younger guys, something to work for. And I would make that the workhorse title. And honestly, whether or not WWE drops the US Championship, that's entirely up to them. I think you can keep it and still have another championship on Raw. Something serious, something prestigious. The idea of WWE bringing back this belt is very interesting. Whether or not it's NXT UK or the main roster, I'm very intrigued to see what happens. But I really don't know what will happen. So I really want to know what you guys think in the comment section, because right now, WWE, it's a limbo. Like, they are in limbo right now. And the reason why they're in limbo is because, as you guys know, the pandemic has caused a lot of issues for WWE in terms of taping and stuff like that. So this kind of allows them to, I would say, this would kind of allow them to get people excited again. I think it's a refresher, something new, something different, something that's not necessarily a gimmick either. And that's just the one way I see it. Whether or not you agree or disagree is entirely up to you. But let me know what you guys think in the comment section down below. And don't forget, guys, we have some more news coming to the channel. So you are going to want to click that subscribe button. If you guys click that subscribe button, you can ring the bell. And YouTube says if you ring the bell, you'll actually get notified on all of the latest content on the channel. And quite honestly, I don't know if that's true, because sometimes YouTube is just not pushing these videos out. So that's why you following on Twitter definitely helps out. But just nonetheless, guys, do your part. Help me out. Let's grow the channel together. A lot of cool things happening right now on the wrestling, or in the wrestling world, I should say, despite the pandemic that's happening, there is news out there. And I thought this was one that you really just can't pass up on. The European Championship, I'm all for it. Are you all for it? Let me know in the comment section down below, guys, and I'll see you next time. Peace.
You have arrived at your destination.